Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. Hope you all had a nice, relaxing, fun weekend. Um, hope you all did something interesting. I know I say the same thing every time. And I know I comment that I say the same thing every time. But it doesn't make it any less true. We're going to continue with Fusion 360. Because at least as far as I can tell for the foreseeable future, that's what we're going to be doing. To get you guys ready for CNC machines. Because that should be pretty cool, right? We're going to continue making the bookshelf. We've got a while to go yet before that thing is ready to go. But at the very least, we're going to start bringing it into the third dimension and doing all that stuff. But, well, now that's pretty much it. Did anybody do anything fun this weekend? Any crazy stories? As far as I'm concerned, I actually went roller skating for the first time in 20 years. Pretty normal weekend? Okay. Well, sometimes normal is nice too. And yeah, no problem. It's always interesting to hear stories because sometimes you get somebody who's like, hey, I went rock climbing last weekend and I almost fell off a mountain. And you're kind of like, oh my god, okay. But yeah, normal weekends are good too. It's good to relax. But yeah, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and continue along. So just as a refresher, and the videos are up on YouTube as well, so if you ever want to go back and look at those, you're more than welcome to. We got ourselves a little bit familiarized with Fusion 360, at the very least. I hope. There, I had to move the microphone down. Hopefully that sounds better. Hopefully, you guys are just starting to get more comfortable with it, based on what we've been doing. A lot of this stuff just comes with repetition, though. So, as we continue to do things, you'll get plenty of opportunity to repeat a lot of the stuff that we've done earlier on, and you'll see exactly what I mean as we do that. So, this is good practice for it. But anyway, we created a rectangle. It was probably the most exciting thing we did on Monday. In fact, it was so exciting we created 5 more rectangles inside of that larger rectangle. But it was good to introduce us to sketching and to sketching dimensions. That was really the entire point of that, because it was important to make that distinction. We can sort of sketch the rough idea of something, and then the proportions don't actually matter until we sketch the dimensions. Because when we sketch the dimensions, then it goes, okay, it needs to be this particular size. And, this is not a good example because not all the dimensions are sketched, but, we'll tell it that it needs to be, everything needs to be to a certain scale, and it goes, oh, okay, I can do that, and then it'll sort of fill in the blanks and stuff like that. And I worked with some of you guys, and we ran into some of the things that Fusion can do when it gets confused. You might run into something saying that it'll overconstrain the sketch or whatever, and that's usually because there are two conflicting dimensions on it, and Fusion can't figure it out. It can't sort of find a way to reconcile the two. I'm just bringing that up now, just as a heads up. That might be something you guys run into. You don't have to, write this down or anything like that or remember it. It's just, if you run into something like that, it's easily fixable at least. Sometimes it just requires a little bit of inspection, though. And I accidentally just kicked my cat in the face. I'm a terrible person. But yeah, so basically it was all, last Wednesday was all about sketching and sketching dimensions. And we created our bookcase cross-section in order to exemplify that. And we left it off with the completed sketch of the cross-section, but having not actually done anything with it yet. So that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to do stuff with it. We're going to turn it into a 3-dimensional drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and get Fusion open. There it is. It's always in the same spot on my desktop, and I always have trouble finding it, because that's just how I roll. Some might say that I should probably clean up my desktop. And they're right, I probably should. Let's just hide it for now, though. So Fusion's starting up. Eventually. There it is. So we'll give it a minute to boot up. I'm sure it's going to be a lengthy process likewise on everybody else's computer. It's a pretty memory-intensive program, and it needs to pull a lot of information from the hard drive and throw it into memory. So it's to be expected that it'll take a minute. Just as a fair warning for today and Wednesday, I'm going to have to pop off right at 8 o'clock because I'm actually going to head over to another class and help out Mr. Dubik with his class. So I'm not really going to be available for question and answer time after class today or Wednesday, but you know, I'll make up for that next week, and the rest of the semester I'll be here. If that changes again, though, I'll let you know. It looks like this is going to be a one-time thing for just this week. No, as you can see, it's still on the splash screen. There we go. So hopefully, we go up here to the Show Data panel and click that, because you know, where's the drawing? If your drawing isn't here, it sort of presents an issue because it's kind of hard to continue with no drawing. However, you see these 9 squares in the upper left-hand corner? If you mouse over it, it says Show Data Panel. If you click on that, and bring it over, you should have a list of projects. Here I've got 3. I've got this widgety thing, and then I've got another bookshelf, and then I've got the one that we were working on in class. If you just double-click it, let it do its thing. There we go. Now it's up, and I can just click that little 9-box grid again once it's figured its stuff out. There we go. Click on that little 9-box grid again to make it go away, and now we have the entire workspace again. So cool. Here's our sketch. Pretty, you know, pretty. So it might take everybody a minute or two in order to get it loaded up, depending on how fast your computer is. But just while you're waiting, so you get an idea of what exactly you're looking at. These big rectangles here, these are actually pretty much empty space. On the left and right hand side, they're going to be you know, the side walls of the bookcase. But in the middle, you know, obviously you're going to have your drawer, or sorry, your shelf, and then your bottom shelf. And then there's going to be that little kick plate, like if you've ever looked at a piece of furniture, like a dresser or an armoire or well, a bookcase. There's usually a little plate down there at the bottom, so it looks a little nicer. You know, crumbs don't get under there. Your feet don't get caught underneath the bookcase. Gives you something to kick. I guess that's why they call it kick plate. And then we got some open space here, and then we've got the back and the top of the bookcase. So there's actually going to be a lot of open space in this bookcase, despite what this might look like, as you know, you tend to want for a bookcase. But anyway, hopefully everybody should have it opened up by now. So let's go ahead and bring it into 3D. It's just blinking. It might be trying to load up the projects, and it keeps refreshing the screen. It's odd that it's just blinking, though. That sounds like a slowdown issue, like the screen is trying to refresh, and it's happening slowly enough that you know you can see it. Give it another minute or two. If it doesn't pop up, maybe we can spend a couple of minutes near the end of the class seeing if we can't get your file to come back up, um, before 8, or we'll figure something out. Anyway, um, as it stands right now, how do we bring this into 3 dimensions? So this is sort of the center point of CAD modeling. Is it's all about creating 2-dimensional sketches and then adding a third dimension to them. It's an interesting way to do things, although it makes perfect sense once you're used to it, and it's kind of hard to think of doing it any other way, other than maybe sort of like a digital sculpting thing that a lot of the more freeform ones have. But for something like this, it actually is the most straightforward and easiest way to do it, especially because we're dealing with a lot of angles and flat lines and things like that. So we can do things like rectangles and then make a rectangular prism out of the rectangle and so on and so forth. Uh, I guess the really important question that everybody wants to know is, how do we end up doing that? Well, that's part of it. There are a whole bunch of different ways to do it. There is in fact a whole menu devoted to different ways to do that. So if we wanted to take a look at it, I could click on this little create drop-down menu here. There are even some in modify, but we'll look at create right now. You can create a box, a cylinder, a sphere, a torus, which is just like a donut, a coil, a pipe, all this kind of different stuff. But down here, you've got extrude and revolve and sweep and loft, and these are different ways of turning a 2-dimensional drawing into a 3-dimensional figure or model. And these are basically like the kind of the meat to the potatoes that is sketching, to make the meat and potatoes of CAD modeling. Anyway, that was really dumb. I'm sorry, everybody. But these are just this is the other half, the complement to what we did on last Wednesday. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use Extrude right now. And we're going to take a look at how Extrude works. So again, we can have something that's 3-dimensional on our bookcase, and we can get sort of a feel for how it works. So let's go ahead and select Extrude. So now the way Extrude works is you select the things that need to be extruded, and then you set basically a distance for them to be extruded. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. I mean, there are some other things to it, like some of these over here, but we'll take a look at those in a minute. We'll actually get more familiar with those at the end of the project. By the end of the project, certainly before then, we'll get more familiar with those. But by the end of the project, you guys should be pretty familiar with what at least most of these things do. Pretty much all of these things, but at least most of them. But like I said, it's a pretty simple process. You select what you want, and you extrude it a distance. So let's go ahead and select what we want. We're going to extend the top of the bookcase. We're going to create the top of the bookcase, the roof, whatever. So what I can do is I'm just going to zoom in on the top here, and I'm going to select these 2 top rectangles. Well, this top rectangle and this top square. So the entire top section is selected. If we zoom out, that entire top section is blue. And that's what we want. Those are the things we want to extrude. So let me give myself a better angle. Zoom out a little bit. So now we have to do the length of this extrude. Well, this is a cross section of the bookcase, right? So what we're eventually going to make is something that looks like this. So what do you think this dimension is going to be here? Oh, that lovely pink-purple color. If we know from here to here is height, and from here to here is depth, this is along the bottom, where do you think this third dimension is going to be here? Not a trick question. It's pretty straightforward. Exactly. It's going to be width. That's all. So in here, just like we did with height and depth, we can just type width, if it'll let me. Let's try it again. There we go. Width. And it kind of, well, it moved over here. I had the window in the way. But, boom, now it's popped out, and you can see exactly how close my my lovely drawing was to the actual model, which is super duper close. I should be an artist. But width pops in here. The word is black, which means that it's a valid word. And as we move around the little cube, we can see that we've got an actual rectangular prism up there. So let's go ahead and hit OK. So far so good. We've got the top of the bookcase, but not much else. But you also probably noticed, I'm actually going to get rid of these drawings. You actually probably also noticed that the sketch over here on the side disappeared, which makes it a little bit difficult to continue working with. It does that for simplicity's sake, but it also makes assumptions, and we're not quite done with it yet. So let's go ahead and we're going to create. We're going to bring back the sketch. Oh, excellent! I'm glad it just popped up. So you extend it by going to Create, and then Extrude. Actually, let me just go back a couple of steps so I can show it again. Create, and then Extrude. And then you just select these top two little rectangles here. So the big long rectangle and a little square. And then we're going to extrude it by a distance of width. If you just type in width like you have in the user preferences, or the user presets, it should automatically extend it. And there you go. You'll have the top, and it even's like shiny reflective. And so there you go. Like I was saying, that sketch disappeared, which makes it difficult to continue working with it. But there is a way we bring it back. And enter the browser again. The hierarchy, the outline, the part looker adder, whatever you want to call it. I'm kind of partial to part looker adder, but I understand for brevity's sake it's probably best to call it the browser. You'll notice that you've got a whole bunch of different stuff over here. You've got named views, units. We already messed around with the units thing, so we changed the units to inches. We've got origin, bodies, and sketches. And then you've got some arrows next to some of them. You've got an arrow next to named views. You've got an arrow next to origin. In fact, coincides with a little folder icon. Anything that has a folder icon has an arrow next to it. That means that there's more stuff in there. Now, the origin is pretty straightforward. It just means the origin of the plane that you're working with. That's all that means. Bodies refers to any three-dimensional creations on the model. So as you can see, I click the little triangle next to it to extend bodies to see what's inside of it. And now we've just got one body, body one. If I mouse over it, the top gets highlighted. That means that we only have one body, and as you might imagine, it's the top of the bookshelf that we just created. But we're going to go ahead and hide that stuff again. We're going to go down here to sketches, because I've been referring to this, two-dimensional thing on the side over here, a sketch, right? So we're probably going to find our answer in sketches. Well, as you can see over here, if I mouse over sketch 1, you would probably see it better on your computer than you can on mine. There's this little white outline that appears, which is in the position of the sketch that we had. You'll also notice that the light bulb next to it is out, it's off. That just means whether or not it's visible. So if we click that light bulb, voila, our sketch is back. Viola. And there you go. Now you have your sketch back. And that's a really handy thing for sort of switching views in your model. So you can bring back the sketch, so you can modify it some more, create more three-dimensional models from it, and then you can hide them again, so you clean it up and it makes it look more like the final product again. That kind of a thing, we'll be playing around with this browser more in the coming lessons too, so you guys will understand some of the things that it can do and how it can be pretty useful for that, the visibility stuff, certainly. So all I did was click the light bulb and it brought back sketch 1, which is perfect, because now what we're going to do is we are going to set up, from this perspective, it's the right. From this perspective from the front, it's the left. We're going to set up this wall over here. And we're going to do the exact same process. We're going to go Create, Extrude. Now, this time, we're going to zoom in, flip it around a little bit. We're going to select all of the rectangles on this end. And I mean all of them. So make sure you get every single rectangle that's here. Otherwise, things are going to get a little wonky and you're going to have some sort of weird avant-garde, wall on the side that's going to have some stuff that's not extruded, some holes in the side. So as you can see, this whole thing is selected blue now, which is what we want. Also notice that the arrow is pointing inwards. That's good. We want it to point inwards. If yours is pointed outwards, you can drag the arrow the other direction in order to have it point inwards. So now that we got all that stuff selected, we've selected all the stuff we need to extend, now we need to set how far we're going to extend it. In this case, it's going to be ply. Just PLY, ply. Hit enter, and it's going to freak out. Cool, that shouldn't happen. A little bit of troubleshooting. Oops. Figure out why exactly that happened. So I've made this bookshelf, certainly done this step like 3 times now. I don't know why it didn't work that time. Of course, it wouldn't be, proper teaching unless the teacher messed up somehow. Alright, so we got the red. Probably means that it's being extruded in the wrong direction and it's freaking out. Oh, operation. Aha! It helps when I don't have the GoToWebinar screen covering the extrude window. So, let's introduce you guys to operations real quick, because you might be running into the same issue I just did. No, it's all good. Can get the bookshelf part that's blue to show up. Like this, you couldn't load the sketch, or you couldn't, or the sketch disappeared after you extruded it. Okay, yeah. So over here on the browser, there's a list of a bunch of stuff, right? There's a folder called Sketches. If you click the little arrow next to it, it should show you all of the sketches in your model. In this case, Sketch 1. Click the little light bulb next to it so it's lit up, and it will reappear. And you'll have your sketch back. Alright, so, operations. You'll notice here it says cut. Let's go ahead and click this drop-down menu and see what we've got. We've got join, we've got cut, we've got intersect, we've got new body, and we've got new component. These are all useful in different ways for different reasons. Basically, they all do different things. Join means that whatever we extrude here, you'll notice that it overlaps with the top of the bookshelf. Well, it doesn't right now because we have it set to cut. Let's actually change it to join. As you can see, it does that. So now this all becomes one piece. We've got this kind of L shape. That's all one body. So that's what join does. It's extruded this bottom part here, and then it's gone, this is actually touch, so let's just turn it into one body. And so we'll get that. Cut, what that basically does is it says, okay, everything that we've extruded here, that's all meant to be negative space. Which is a weird way to put it, but in essence, if we have, let's see here, new body. This top part already existed before, right? When we select cut, because the stuff we selected to be extruded intersects with the top of that bookcase, that part is removed. It'd be easier to see if we were to like extrude a circle onto the top of this bookcase, like straight down or something like that. Like if we made a circle and we extruded it and we made it a cut, any part that was a part of that extrude would then be cut out, so that we'd have this nice hole in the top of the bookcase that was the same size as the thing that we extruded. Uh, Not even if you extend the sketches, like by clicking the little triangle here, you don't get sketch 1 down here? Because there's the two triangles next to browser, but underneath browser there's the folder called sketches, and then there's the right-facing triangle next to that, and it's just a single triangle. Perfect. Excellent. Yeah, just click the little light bulb so it's lit up, and then sketch 1 will be back. Okay, so yeah, that's cut. Basically, anything that intersects with the extrude gets removed from whatever body it was originally a part of. And then we've got intersect, which is interesting. A bunch of weird stuff happened here with intersect, right? Intersect is a little bit more complex. So let me pull up Paint and show off more of my wonderful painting skills in order to explain intersect a little bit better. So far we've got join. Let's say we have a cube, and then we put a sphere in the middle of it. So join, it becomes a cube sphere, which is the rarest of all geometric shapes. And then cut. Let's say we're extruding the sphere, for sake of argument. So cut basically cuts that part out of the cube that the sphere was touching. Now, intersect, it takes the stuff that these two have in common and generates a shape based on that. So let me see if I can draw this. It would create a shape like this, which looks weird, I know. But what it is it's the part of the cube and the sphere that overlap. And that's all that's left over with an intersect. So if we go back to our Fusion 360 drawing here, as you can see, there's just this weird little strip. If you remember, when we extruded the top of the bookcase, we used these top two rectangles. When we tried to as we're trying to extrude the side of the bookcase, we're using this whole rectangle, including the top two. So between those two, these top two rectangles are what they have in common. So by using intersect, if we hit OK, all we're left with is just that top strip. But we don't want to do that. What we want to do, actually, is we want to use join. Basically, new body will create a new body. I mean, pretty self-explanatory. You'll get a new listing in bodies here. And new component will give us components can be parts of a body that aren't necessarily connected to each other, so that you can copy them, and it gets into a thing that we're not necessarily going to touch this time around, so you don't really have to worry about that right now. What we're going to do is we're going to do something a little bit convoluted at first, but whoops, it'll make sense in a moment. So I'm going to select all these again because, I just have to do everything as long as possible. Select, 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 select. Perfect. So select join under operation. Make sure to extrude at a distance of ply, P-L-Y, and hit OK. And now, as you can see, we've got this nice L shape. We've got one of the side walls, and we've got the top of the bookcase, and they are now joined to one another. Which is good, but we've run into a slight problem. In order to save myself some time, I'm going to do something a little bit different in order to get that other side wall. Because it's going to be a little bit strange to get this sketch projected out over here a certain distance by using the extrude method. Because we're going to have like all of this dead space in here, and then we're going to have this sidewall, which is going to be a little bit hard to explain the computer using just the extrude method. In fact, it's not really a doable thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a method to mirror this half onto this half, so that it just goes like, oh hey, this is over here and it's not over here. In order to make them the same, we're going to make a sidewall over here. But the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to separate these two. But Thomas, you might say, why didn't you just do new body right here? Well, because it creates 3 new bodies and sometimes strange things happen, and also because I want to, show you guys the split body method. Also, I'm the teacher. I get to decide things, okay? Jeez. Had enough of the 3rd degree. All right. So, now that we've got our sidewall and our top, let's go over to Modify. Click on that drop-down menu. And you see about midway down, you've got Split Body, and it says Creates new bodies by dividing selecting bodies using a profile, face, or plane. Select the bodies to modify, then select the profile, face, or plane that divides the bodies, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. So, we're going to select this one, Split Body. You'll notice that the Split Body tool is pretty simple. You've got Body to Split and Splitting Tool. That's all there is to it. And rather than give you guys more extreme camera angles on my half-finished bookcase, under Body to Split, as you might imagine, we're probably going to be selecting the bookcase body. So if we mouse over it, it lights up. If we click on it, it turns blue. So now I've got this blue bit. This entire bookcase is the body we're going to split into 2. So now we got to select a splitting tool. So go ahead and click on that. You'll notice it says it turns blue. And now we can select any of these things to use as our splitting tool. However, we're going to use one thing in particular. We're going to use this line right here. This one. By selecting that line, it creates sort of an imaginary, let's try that again, an imaginary invisible plane try redoing it? Was it something that was there and it disappeared? Like, is it not over here in the browser to be selectable? Or, Also, for those of you on Split right now, you'll notice that I get this big red rectangle when I select the line. That's good. You want that. Hmm. Interesting. Um, maybe try undoing one or two steps and seeing if maybe it was just accidentally deleted or something like that. If it means that the sidewall disappears, I mean that step's repeatable at least. It's just we want to make sure that that sketch stays there at least for a little while longer. So if you can undo back to the point where the sketch reappears, perfect. Um, well, excellent. If you can undo it to the point where the sidewall is here and the sketch is still there, then that's perfect. For those of you splitting, if you've got a red rectangle like this, you can just hit OK. And you'll notice that there is a little line here. This means that these are now two separate bodies, and we can actually see two separate bodies listed in the browser under bodies. If yours looks like this, then that's fantastic. Actually, you've managed to do in one step what I taught everybody to do in two. So it's probably selected. Like if you click on a thing, it turns blue. So if you just click outside of it, that should deselect everything, and then the body should turn gray. And then the sketch will be over here, and it'll be brown. So that will, that'll just because the sketch exists there'll be a brown side, or like a beige-ish. Okay, cool. Also, excellent. All right. So hopefully, you should have your sidewall separated from the top. Now let's go ahead and mirror that. Well, okay, I lied. Not quite yet. We're going to teach you construction. It's, there's a constructs, maybe is a better way to put it. So, show of hands, how many of you guys have tried like your hand at drawing? It doesn't stay. Is the light bulb lit up next to sketches? Hmm. That is interesting. Like, when does it disappear? When you try and click on something else, or? Or does it just pop up for a second and then disappear? Okay, so assuming like both of the light bulbs are on here, when when does it disappear? Like if you click away from it, or does it just sort of disappear of its own accord? Um, Sorry, yes to which one? When you click away from it? Okay, that is interesting. I might have to look into that and get back to you on Wednesday, before class or something like that, because that's something I haven't encountered before. There might be some option that just basically says like hide things that aren't selected, which would be a horribly counterintuitive option. But hey, I mean, people put the weirdest things into their programs, so who knows? But yeah, I might have to get back to you on that one. Do a little bit of research and figure something out. In the meantime, I will get this video up tonight. So at the very least, if you're able to figure something out by tonight or tomorrow, you can always go over the video again and do all the stuff that we've been doing here. But yeah, show of hands. How many of you have tried your hand at drawing, or sketching or anything like that, like with a pencil and paper? All right, quite a few hands. So you know how you have to do like like the oval makes the person's head, and then you do like the 5.5 more ovals, and then you do like the skeleton for the body and stuff like that, and it's just like like figure drawing and stuff like that. Um, that's basically what construction or constructs are in Fusion. They're helper bits and pieces, things that you can put onto the drawing so that you can see where like maybe the middle of something is, or where two things intersect, or the parallel lines and whatever, arcs, things like that. They're there to aid you in constructing this model. That's why they call them like construction lines or construction planes or whatever. I'm just calling them constructs because it's not really the correct term, but it is a noun which sounds similar to construction stuff. So that's why I use it. But it's not stuff that actually exists as part of the model. So if we were to finish this off with a bunch of construction stuff everywhere, and export the model to somewhere else, like get it ready for cutting or something like that, it's not going to get a bunch of extraneous lines thrown into it, because as far as the computer is concerned, all of those constructs don't actually exist. They're there as helpful sort of visual aids for us. And that's the whole point of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a construct, a construction plane, which gives us the midpoint of this top, which is going to be useful for the mirroring. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Construct drop-down menu, and then there's this one called Midplane. It says creates a construction plane at the midpoint between two faces or work planes. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Offset plane, plane at angle, tangent plane, plane through two edges, plane through 3 points, plane tangent to face at point, plane along path, blah, 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 blah. But we're just going to select midpoint, or midplane. Midplane. Midpoint is totally different. We're going to select midplane. And doesn't seem like much happened. That's because I had to select things first. Okay. Because I'm bad at Fusion, apparently. Alright, so we need to select some stuff first. So first things first, go ahead and click on this little tiny rectangle on the long end of the top. This one up here. Boop. That one right there. And then, so as you can see, it's blue. Then we're going to flip it around, and we're going to select this, that one right there. Hey! Actually, there's just no menu that pops up, and I should have known that. I just forgot. So yeah, let me just go ahead and undo that so I can actually do this process like I know what I'm doing. Construct midplane, select the top rectangle, and then select the top rectangle on the other side. And you should see a yellow plane appear here, or an orange plane, and it's probably going to be difficult to see on my computer. It's probably going to be easier to see on your screen, but it's there. Right there, just hanging out in the middle of the top. That is the exact, like if we were to slice right there, we would slice the top part of the bookcase exactly in half. Exactly in half. And like I said, this thing doesn't like actually technically exist in the model. This is just here for our purpose as far as constructing it is concerned. We can use it, like if it asks us for a plane like we did with the split bodies, we could use this plane. As it knows it exists, technically, so we can say, okay, use that, and it knows what we're talking about. But as far as the final product is concerned, this thing doesn't exist. So now what we're going to do, now that we've created our midplane, is we're going to go back over to Create. I'm going to go down here to Mirror. Makes a mirrored copy of selected faces, features, or bodies at equal distances across a plane. I wonder what we could be using here. What body and what plane? Well, let's see. So, the mirror menu is going to be a thing we're going to need to select first. As you can see, we've got objects, and you select objects in order to be mirrored. You got mirror plane, you select the plane around which it's going to be mirrored. And then you've got pattern type, and you've got a few options here. You've got pattern faces, you've got pattern bodies, and you've got pattern features. What we're going to do is we're going to select the middle option, pattern bodies, because we've got this body here, right? The inflection was way off on that question, but right. That's the body we want to reflect. So we're going to click that. Boom. So now I've got this nice blue selected body. That's the one we want to reflect. Then we're going to select mirror plane over here, and we're going to select our midplane. And as soon as you click on that, you should see a ghost of the sidewall on the other side, showing us that that's what's going to be mirrored. If you got that, then excellent. You can just hit OK, and well, bam. Now we've got, with 3 clicks, we've got the other side already not only extruded, but in the exact place we need it to be in. If we zoom in really close to the side over here, as you can see, it's perfectly flush with the top, exactly like we want it to be. It's got the same exact dimensions as this one, and it's the same distance from the middle. It's mirrored. I mean, that's pretty much the definition of the word. I took way too long to get to that sort of punchline of all of that. But anyway, now you've got that mirrored. Now we've run into a little bit of an issue with continuing. Just a little teensy one. A little teeny tiny one. That's easily fixable. But it does impede our progress. We're probably not going to be able to get to it until Wednesday, because I still want to leave it open a little bit for like questions and stuff like that at the end. But does anybody think they have an idea about what it might be? You just take a stab in the dark and see what the issue might be with what we've got so far. I'll give you a hint. Where's the sketch? And what do we need to do next? Just hit my coffee mug against my glass of water and make some beautiful music. Okay. So next, we're probably going to have to do the shelves and the kick plate in the back of the bookshelf, right? The shelves traditionally are, inside of a bookcase. The sketch, on the other hand, as you can see, is resting comfortably on the outside, on the other side of this wall, which presents a bit of a problem for us as far as extruding those shelves are concerned. Because shelves have got to be inside, sketches outside. Again, there's no real way to extrude like a certain distance away from a sketch. It's just you extrude from the sketch outwards, and that's it. You can't say like, okay, we want to extrude, but maybe leave 3/4 of an inch between the start of the extrude and the sketch. It's just not doable. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to move this sketch onto the inside so that we can start extruding the bookshelves and the kick plate and the back of the bookshelf, starting from the inside of the sidewall. And that's what we'll do on Wednesday.